Hello there. I'm just having a smoke of my pipe. It's another cold day. I've come in and I'm still cold because I haven't lit a fire. If you're interested, this is called a Carey pipe, Carey, made in London. Hello. Sorry about that interruption. That was my daughter wanting to talk to me. Um, where was I? Oh yeah, this is a Carey pipe made by a firm called Carey, made in London. Oh, and it's got a magic insert. Oh well, it hasn't got a magic insert at the moment. Magically disappeared. But yeah, that's what it is. Just for you connoisseurs. Perhaps you can look it up. I haven't bothered. Here's a little story for you. We're up and about early today, Jimmy and me. I'm hoping that Jimmy might show me how to guddle a trout, or even better, a salmon. Jimmy's my new stepdad. He just married my mum just a few weeks prior to this little story. It's 1957, the start of the school summer holidays. I'm 12 years old. Okay, no, it must be 1959. I'm 12 years. I was born in 1947. Can you believe that? Before I was born in the first half of the last century. It's old, isn't it? I'm surprised I'm still here. Where was I? Yeah, so it must be 1959. I know I was 12 because that's when I went to. That's when it happened. So just a few days ago, before this happened, I'd been living in London. I was a proper city boy, right Cockney. Talked like a proper Cockney, you know I did. Know what I mean? Anyway, I hadn't seen my mum for a good few years until she appeared suddenly and without any warning whatsoever at the foster home where I was being kept or looked after, fostered. Um, anyway, she took me out of there without any warning. There was a bit of an altercation with the foster mother, but my mum got her own way, as it turned out she usually did. And off we went. Suddenly, I was living the life of a country boy. Within 24 hours, I was in Scotland, living in Scotland in a remote kind of place on a croft. Um, yeah, it was the start of a completely new way of life for me and for her because she hadn't had a settled home for many years. Start of a new way of life for Jimmy as well because he'd been widowed. No, can men be widowed? Well, he'd been a widower for many, many, many years. His wife had died at a very young age. Um, yeah, I was apprehensive about meeting him for the first time, but the apprehension was unwarranted. And my relationship with this man, he was a dour, Scarface Scot, man of very few words. And anyway, the relationship developed. Well, we're more like acquaintances than friends at the moment. Early days. Anyway, we're out and about. As we skirted the fields of the neighbouring farm on our way to the river, Jimmy, with his shotgun cocked, was ever vigilant for game. And it wasn't long before his little dog Scamp disturbed a hare from its set, and the said hare was quickly and expertly dispatched. with one shot, and we hid the hare beside a dry stone dike, called dikes up there, the wolves, and we would pick it up on our homeward journey. Scamp, Scamp, the little dog, was a very, very scruffy black and white mongrel with bad teeth and malodorous breath, a small runt-like specimen of a collie. He'd only recently got the name Scamp from my mum had named him Scamp. The rest before that, the poor little dog didn't have a name. I suspect he was called a Watemi or you wee bastard or something, some sort of name like that. Yeah, Jimmy just never saw the point of naming him. I think that was just the way it was with sort of farm people in those days. The small size of the dog, I discovered later, was mainly down to the fact that his usual diet, believe it or not, was bread and milk, with the occasional treat of the guts of whatever animal Jimmy had just dispatched, thrown to him. To a city lad like me, I'd only ever seen one river, that was the mighty River Thames in London. The banks of the River Don in Aberdeenshire were a wonderful, wondrous place to be. Rippling, tumbling, sparkling in one place, and then smooth as glass in another, deep and dangerous here, shallow enough to walk across there. There were scattered granite rocks and boulders, tempted me to hop from one to another. The occasional slip and boot full of freezing water. Well, that was a small price to pay for such joy. Islands of shingles there were. They were home to plovers, terns, and oyster catchers, birds I'd only ever seen illustrated in books. And here they were in abundant real life. And honestly, they didn't even seem to be worried about the presence of humans. It's quite amazing for a city boy to see all this. Anyway, this was a work day, and it was soon time to head home for Jimmy. He worked in the local quarry, which was the place where he'd acquired his scarred face. That was a result of an accident, a tragic accident that had taken the lives of several of his friends many years previously. The quarry, which he worked at, was where the granite came, or some of the granite came that built the Thames embankment. So I'd seen it before. The quarry, the granite. I hadn't realised, of course. Um, the quarry was about a 5 mile bike ride away from home where we lived. Well, it was home. It was my first proper home. Jimmy used to cycle to work every day in all weathers, and believe me, the weather could be extreme sometimes over there in those parts. My mum told me that apart from the war years when he served in the army, Jimmy had never been late for work or missed a day in 40 years. Anyway, as we made our way back, we were forced into single file on a particularly narrow bit of the riverbank. Suddenly, Jimmy stopped and signalled me to do the same, saying, "Hardon loon." That means, hold on, boy, hold on, lad, in the dialect. Quite a strong dialect up there. They call it the Doric. Yeah, Aberdeen try, the Doric. Anyway, Jimmy said, he motioned me, he said, stay low, stay low. He took his jacket off and rolled up the right hand sleeve of his shirt. After he took a look along the bank in both directions, I think to make sure no one was looking, there wasn't anyone there, he slowly and deliberately lay down on the bank. Carefully, he began to dip his hand into the water until his arm was submerged up to the armpit. I was holding on tightly to Scamp's collar as I watched as Jimmy was lying there, apparently motionless, for several minutes. Suddenly, there was a terrific commotion and thrashing and splashing. Jimmy rolled his body away from the bank's edge, bringing his arm out of the water in a sweeping arc. That's me acting there. And in his hand, he held, clamped through its gills, a large, struggling, silver-flashing fish, which he threw backwards over his prone body onto the grass. Is it a salmon? Is it a salmon? I said, excitedly. As I watched him, he took a rock, gave the gasping fish a smack on the head. Aye, laddie, Rachtanuk, he answered. Yes, lad, you're right enough. It was a salmon. It's one of the few times I ever saw him smile. Dinna tell Aberdeen, he said. That's that wee story for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I came in because I was bloody cold. I'm not as tough as I used to be. Look after yourself, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.